know anything about him?
What's the question?
Yeah, he wasn't well yesterday, and this morning he was feeling a lot better. So obviously he said he became not well again.
No, but he said that he vomited this morning.
Oh,
Did he?
He left me a message.
You missed that.
So he wants to know if he should go to cover him if he's not feeling well. So
Oh, Mordecai.
I don't know what to answer him. Anyway, I think that since he's not here, I can't talk to him personally. If he's not feeling well in the morning, when he wakes up, then I don't think you should take him. Because he's got an upset stomach at traveling in buses and he had something. So I can make a try. The truth of the matter is he hasn't looked well the whole weekend. He's looked to his face, he's looked to the something. Guri needs to go and see a doctor.
He signed up with insurance so he can go to the doctor.
Where's your friend, by the way?
Who?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I don't want them.
But I don't know. I don't want to compare you to something written in the Torah.
Shir Tali, Parshas Bo,
Huh?
6th of Shvat.
Huh?
So leave it in well, this month.
There's lots of good things.
It's a little bit unfair to mention it. But not with a good taste. All right. Don't worry about it. Doesn't worry about it.
I'm gonna cry.
I could have made a little, sort of joke with it. It wouldn't have been on this one, so I'm not making it. Not because of you.
I'm gonna cry now. I'm gonna cry when I go home.
Well, that won't do any harm. To cry before Christmas Shalom is a good thing.
On a Thursday night.
A lot of cities used to do that.
Doesn't enough.
Even though they hadn't been in Shalom.
Seven.
All right. So we're going to deal now with a pasuk, chapter Yud Beis in Parsha Boy. Several psukim, and we see that chapter Kof Tes, pasuk Kof Tes, chapter Yud Beis pasuk Kof Tes. Vayhi b'chatzi halayla, but that means mamish at chatzis halayla. Hikor kol b'cher v'Hashem, v'Hashem hikor kol b'cher be'eretz Mitzrayim. That the Eibishter smote. He smote all of the b'cheres, firstborn sons in Eretz Mitzrayim. And then the pasuk reckons out in detail the different types of bechor that were, in other words, that all the imaginable levels of bechor were hit by this plague. By Yocham Pari Laila, Pari got up in terrible distress even in the middle of the night, and there was a great shout and a great cry throughout Mitzrayim. And he called to Moshe Aaron. He said, must go out immediately. Do as Hashem kedaberchem, the way you have claimed the whole time that you want to do it. And then he says, you must take everything with you, your flocks and your cattle. And even give me a blessing. As Rashi tells us that he was a bechor and he was worried that he would also be drawn and smitten by the plague. And so then the pasuk says, "Vatechazach Mitzrayim al ha'om, limaher l'shalchom min haaretz." That the Mitzrayim, meaning the Egyptian people, became very strong and pushy on the Jewish people to hurry and to speed up and to send them from the country. In other words, they pushed them and hurried them, urging them to leave with great speed. Ki omru, why were they in such a hurry? Kulanu Mason, as long as they remain here, then we're all apparently gonna, it'll begin with the Bechoros, but it'll spread, it will all be wiped out. Vayisor ha'om, meaning the Jewish people, Yisor ha'om, es b'tzei koi terem yachmotz. The people lifted up their their batzeik, their dough. Batzeik means flour that's had water mixed with it, but it hasn't become baked yet. It hasn't been baked, but that's called batzeik. So Yisor ha'om is batzeik koi. The Yidden literally bore, or they lifted up their dough, terem yechmotz, before it had a chance to become chometz. In other words, that implies that it could have become chometz, but they lifted it up in a situation whereby it was terem yechmotz, before it became chometz. Misharei som, sureis besimlei som. And they had something which is a leftover, or maybe something apart from a leftover, literally wrapped up or parceled inside their garments, al shichmon, on their shoulders. In other words, they took clothes, they put whatever this misharei sam is inside their clothes, and they carried it like packages on their shoulders. And then it's written that Bnei Yisrael did according to what Moshe had instructed them, and they borrowed things from the Mitzrim. But that's really not our concern right at the moment. In Pasuk Lamed Zayin, it's written by Yisu Bnei Yisrael mi Ramses to Koisah. They went from the city of Ramses, which is where they'd been, that's where they were, in Eretz Goshen, to Koisah. And Sukkos is the name of a city outside the border of Egypt already. So they traveled from Ramses to Sukkos, Kishesh Me'es Elef Ragli, and there was 600 walking men, in other words, 600 owners of feet, 600,000, I'm sorry. Hagvonim, that's only the males, Levad Mitaf, apart from the small children. Begam Erev Rav Aloi Tom, and there was a great mixture of peoples and Gerim and others that wanted to sort of come along as well. And with many flocks and cattle, very, very heavy, meaning of tremendous quantity. Now, Vayoifu es habotzek. Now this botzek, which they lifted up, terem yechmotz, prior to it becoming chometz, what did they do with it? They baked it. I'm sorry. Vayoifu es habotzek, botzek asher hitzu mitzrayim, which they took it out of Mitzrayim, ugeis matzos. They baked literally little cakes of matzos, ugeis matzos. Kilei chometz, because it just was not chometz. Now that expression, ki loy chometz, tends to indicate that there was something almost natural, or just by way of fact, or following in the situation. Ki loy chometz. It just didn't become chometz. Ki gershu mi mitzrayim, because they were driven out. So why didn't it become chometz? Ki is usually a giving of a reason. Ki gershu mi mitzrayim, they were driven out of Egypt, v'lo yochlu lihismamaya, and they weren't able to pause or to hesitate. V'gam tzeder lo osu lohem, and so they didn't take with them any other form of produce, adequate, something you take with you for the way. They didn't take anything else with them. Well, Moshe Bnei Yisrael Yoshu Mitzrayim, 430 years, that's already another issue. So we see here that when the actual moment of the going out of Mitzrayim arrived, by the way, this fellow Mochoel, anybody knows where he is? Huh? So he has to report to me after the shiur. He's got to be called up and he's got to be told to come here before I leave the shiur. And if he's gone away somewhere, then...
He was here, he's here.
So why is he not by the clock? Okay, so he's got to report to me after the class, and we're going to decide whether he's going or not to the Churah. Okay? Right. So, the moment that the Yidden are about to go out of Mitzrayim, then we see that Paro flies into a tremendous panic because of the Machas HaBechoros. And he says, you must get out of here quick, and you must give me a blessing. And then the Mitzrayim press the Yidden to speed them with all possible pressures, and speed and hurry to get out, because they said, Kulanu may see him. So listen, if you don't think you can stay awake, which it doesn't look to me as if you can, then maybe better leave, okay? So make your decision. What's your decision? Yeah, we've already asked about you. You had an honourable mention whether you wanted or not. You've wasted my time by the sheer to have to talk about you. Huh?
Sorry.
Are you sorry? Yeah, so am I. So make your decision, okay? Either you stay awake or you leave. If I was you, I would leave, because you don't look to me as if you're going to stay awake. Alright, so this is because we've got to understand that a yeshiva is not a one-way job, it's a two-way job. Yeah? I put in a lot of effort, I expect a little bit of feedback from everybody concerned. And I had the most amazing thing that I found out one of the guys has gone away completely without even having mentioned it to another city in the country, way up in the north. I think, I just don't quite understand why he does his duty. I try to be fair, I try to be comradely with everybody. Why should that sort of thing go on? I don't know. Right. So now, it's a 7-minute class. All we ask is a little bit of attention. If you pay attention to your work, you can get anything. All we need is a little bit of feedback. Right, so now we'll go further. It appears that the Mitzrayim drove the Yidden out with all possible speed. So Rashi says on that pasuk, Lamed Gimel, Rashi says, Vatechazech, Mitzrayim, L'Shleach Ha'am, because they said, other words, we're all, so Kulanu Meisim, we're all going to be dead. Then in the next one, Pasuk Lamed Dalet, I'm sorry, we won't do with Rashi on that one just for lack of time. Vayisrael ha'am es batzekui terem yechmotz. So it says Rashi, terem yechmotz, before it had a chance to become chometz, hamitzriyim lo hinichum lishois kedei chimutz. The Mitzrayim didn't allow them or leave them a time, lishois, to take the time, kedei chimutz, for it to become chometz. So now, we have to realize that this has already become botzeik. Now, when you say something is botzeik, then you mean a dough, which means that water was already put with the flour. Now, once you put water in the flour, it's only a very short time before it turns into some form of what we call chometz, particularly at normal temperatures, and particularly warm temperatures like they are in Mitzrayim. So, if they already had botzeik, then within either 18 minutes or within 24 minutes, there's two different opinions. I brought down in the Gemara, the Alter Rebbe brings both of them in the Shulchan Aruch. The one opinion says that within 18 minutes, once the water has hit the flour, then it will turn into chometz. Another says 24 minutes. So if we say that they already had botzeik, it was already water with flour, and they lifted that up, and then the Mitzrayim were hurrying them. So Rashi says the Mitzrayim hurried them so much and didn't allow them to pause for a moment, kidei chimutz, which means that the Mitzrayim must sped them in such a way that it didn't have the opportunity to take 18 or 24 minutes to become to become chomet. I mean, ask yourself, how could that really be? Such a small amount of time could be created by this tremendous hurrying of the Mitzrayim to prevent it becoming chomet. So something very speedy and unusual must have been happening here, just simply in the physical situation, that they hurried them in such a way that it couldn't become chomet. So Mishar Isom, Rashi says that they put this, whatever Mishar Isom means, into their clothes and carried it on their shoulders. So Rashi says, Shiroi Matzah Umora. That was the leftovers of Matzah and Moreh. Al Shichmom, on their shoulders, they carry them like in packages over their shoulders. Afal Pisha Behemoth Harbe Hochlimon. They had many animals and donkeys and all sorts of things they took out with them when they left Mitzrayim. So why didn't they put them on the animals? Why did they have to carry them on their shoulders? Says Rashi, Mechavavim Hoyu Es HaMitzvahs. They were showing love and affection for mitzvahs. So I asked myself to Shaila, what mitzvahs were they showing love for? And what were they doing with leftovers of matzah and moreh? That indicates that before Chatzos, because this is from the moment of Chatzos and further, that before Chatzos they must already have matzah, and they must already have moreh, but they had leftovers. And so they didn't just want to throw away the leftovers. It's brought down in certain Sfarim, but again to that, if it's leftovers from a mitzvah, then you deal with it in an honorable way. And so particularly here, that this was the first mitzvah that they'd got from the Eivish, except for mitzvah's Milah, which was from the time of Avraham Avinu. So they had a very big affection for this mitzvah, and therefore they wrapped it up in their clothes. I suppose they didn't have anything much else to wrap up in. Everything was in such a hurry. And they carried it on their shoulders to be mechavev, to show affection and love for the mitzvah. So I asked to show what are they doing with matzah and moreh. So the intelligent reader is already aware of the fact that they had to eat, from the beginning of the evening, they had to eat a Korban Pesach. They made a Korban Pesach. And they slaughtered the Korban Pesach and they ate it under certain conditions. They had to take the blood of the Korban, put it on the mezuzah habayis and the whole thing. As written earlier in the parasha. And everybody's no doubt familiar or intimately familiar or partially familiar with the whole Indian of Beneged to the mitzvahs of the Korban Pesach. It's written earlier in the parasha. And it's written that they ate the mitzvah, they ate the Korban Pesach, al matzos u'meroirim yoichluhu. You must eat it literally upon matzos and meroirim. Which tells me that they ate the Korban Pesach, mamish physically together with matzos and with bitter herbs. And that was prior to Chatzos. Because when it came Chatzos, then all of a sudden the whole Mitzrayim blew up, and they gave the Matzos HaBechoros, and then things just got really haywire, and they had to get out of Mitzrayim, or at least start moving. And Pari went haywire, and he was driving them out. And the Mitzrayim went even more haywire, and they were just crazy to get them out. So all of this, that they ate the Korban Pesach, and they ate the matzos, and they ate the meroirim, and that was all Kodim Chatzos. Now they come to the simple meaning. And therefore, if you look up your Siddur every day when you daven, why do I say you should look up your Siddur? Because maybe you don't remember from day to day what you daven. But anyway, it happens to some people that don't remember from one day to the next what they say in the davening. But we say in the Korbanos towards the end, we said that the Korban Pesach ain't a nechel ela ad Chatzos. That the dinner of the Korban Pesach is it has to be eaten before Chatzos Laila. So that means that they must have eaten the Korban Pesach with the matzahs that they made, or where they get those matzahs, we'll see in a second, and Morer, and Korban Pesach. All three of them have to be eaten too. All three of them have to be eaten together, and that has to be done before Chatzos. That follows Lefizeh that there's a mitzvah to eat matzahs immediately the Lael Pesach, meaning the night of the 15th, because the Korban Pesach itself was slaughtered on the 14th in the afternoon, or the actual eating the Korban Pesach was only in the night time together with the matzah and the Mareirim. In other words, that the eating of the Korban Pesach was the night of the 15th. The slaughtering of the Korban Pesach was in the afternoon of the 14th. On the night of the 15th, you had to eat matzahs and Mareirim with your Korban Pesach by Chatzos Laila. And if you didn't, there was a whole shayla whether you ate v'chule. But therefore, we are very mishtadil. I say we're mishtadil. We have to even be makpid that on the night of Pesach over here, not so we only have one night. On the Leila Seder, you have to try and finish the Afikoyman before Chatzos. When you're already a Balabasi, you're familiar with that hurry and the whole strain of trying to finish off the Afikoyman before Chatzos, despite all the guests and all the other Yonim and all the wanting to say something here and there, and the Haggadah Shal Pesach, etc., etc. But you got to finish at Chatzos Laila, because the Afikoyman is in place of the Korban Pesach. And the Korban Pesach has to be eaten at Chatzos Laila. And you have to eat matzahs and Mareirim with the Korban Pesach, because that's what's written Mafurish in the Pasuk. Al matzahs and Mareirim yoichlum. So nowadays we don't have the Korban Pesach. We eat the matzahs and the Morer, but we have to eat them before Chatzos. Zeichet how it was, and Mikoyach, the whole meaning of how it was. Achmanin and Tzlan, to a certain extent, we can't really help it. We don't have the Korban Pesach. I wouldn't say that we're not to blame. Maybe we are a little bit to blame, although we can't really sort of help the situation. We don't have the Korban Pesach. The fact we eat the matzahs and the Mareirim, Koyrim, Chatzos, and we even eat the Afikoyman Koyrim Chatzos to get in the Korban Pesach part, because the Afikoyman is Zeichel Korban Pesach. And therefore, by the time Chatzos Laila, all the mitzvahs of the main eating of Haggadah Shal Pesach, Leil Pesach, have been completed. Because you've told about the going out of the time, that's a mitzvah. You've eaten your matzahs, and you've eaten your morer. All you got to do is finish off a couple of koises of the Arba koises. But the Arba koises are a tikkun midrabanan. That's why not. They're not a mitzvah mamish min haTorah. But the mitzvahs min haTorah we've already finished by Chatzos Laila. So in Chutzlot, where they have another night, they have a second night, so then they don't hurry so much, because it's only midrabanan. It's not such a big competitor to eat the Afikoyman by Chatzos. For the Rabbeim, you sit very late on the second night, and they used to give all sorts of beauty in the Haggadah Shal Pesach because you're not so limited to finish off the Afikoyman before Chatzos. So come to this. The Yidden in Mitzrayim, they had to eat the Korban Pesach, and they had to eat the mitzvah, the Yidden for matzahs with Mareirim and the Korban Pesach all before Chatzos Laila. In Yemen, we see that it's written earlier in the parasha, Bo'erev teichlu matzahs. What Bo'erev means, as soon as it comes in tonight, you've already got a chiyuv to eat matzah. What the Lefizeh comes to is that they already ate matzahs, because there's a mitzvah to eat matzahs. And where does that mitzvah join up? It joins up into the Korban. He said, but it's a separate mitzvah of its own, to eat matzahs, but it has to be eaten together with the Korban Pesach. So all that happened before Chatzos Laila, which means they've already got all their matzahs, they got everything, they got oven and stink, And therefore Rashi says this word Misharo Isom is from the word Lahashir. What Lahashir means to leave something over. And something which is left over is called Nishor, that which remains over. And therefore Misharo Isom is like a Zavod, but that which has been left, their leavings overs, or what you might call it, in a more vernacular term, they're leftovers. And so Rashi said, why do they want to, what they want to do with those leftovers? They're leftovers of matzah and moira. Why not the Korban Pesach? Why don't you say there'd be a few pieces of Korban Pesach maybe left over? Because you have to be very careful with the Korban Pesach, because if it goes through to the morning, after Chatzis, then you're over a mitzvah loisas there from what's called noisa. That you've left it over till the morning, it doesn't get. And therefore, they didn't leave any pieces of Korban Pesach around, but pieces of matzah or mara they left around, and they kept it in their clothes or whatever, spare shirts or whatever they had, and they carried it on their shoulders. Says Rashi, l'chavei v'sah, l'chavei v'sah. It's a mitzvah. Edify. The intelligent reader is immediately attracted by this whole thing that happens now after Chatzos Laila. This is already after all the mitzvahs and everything has been finished. The Yidden have all done all their mitzvahs and they've got the leftovers of Bilvad, but they're just barely finished with their Suda, with their Korban Pesach, with their Matzah Mora. All of a sudden, how do you call it? Oh, heck, let's lose. And here we are. Machas B'chayros and everything. Yeah, so here they go now. They've got to get out of Mitzrayim, and then there's all of a sudden a whole business here with the Botzeig. You know, it was before it became Chometz. It didn't become Chometz, and then they got all the way out and they went from Ramses to Sukkot, which is a heck of a long way. And Rashi comes along and Rashi tells us that Ramses Sukkot is 120 miles. It's quite a long way to go by foot if you're talking about millions of people. There was 600,000 with all the kids, with all the wives, and with everybody. It's a lot of people.
How long did it take?
Yeah?
How long did it take?
Oh, so that's what Rashi said. Rashi said, Bo Shom Lefi Shah. That they came there within an hour.
What?
Yeah, they came there within an hour. Lefi Shah. So another word, Lefi Shah, in Lashon Kodesh, could mean not necessarily an hour, but it means like a while, you know, a short time. A short time. And so Rashi says that that's what is written by Matan Torah. The Abish said to Yidden, V'eso eschem al kanfei nesha, like I've brought you to me, I've bared you to hear with the wings of the eagles. In other words, the eagle flies very quick. He goes over a whole span of ground quickly. You remember, they went over a huge span of ground by foot like eagles. They got, so it was very quick. Yeah, things happened very quickly. So it comes along Rashi, and Rashi says that they lifted up here, Botek. So what are they doing with what are they doing with cloud Botek? Where's it to and say it? They finished with the matzahs and with everything. Mahimosi. So we have to say it's only after Chatzos Laila, and all of a sudden they see that they've got to get cracking. Yeah, and they still had some flour and water with the other things that they used to make the matzahs, which were for the mitzvah. So they said, here we go, you know. Have to take something with us, or, you know, we can't just leave all this flour and everything around. So they made it into Botek, but it was moving at tremendous speed. And therefore, who was moving them at tremendous speed? The Mitzrayim. The Mitzrayim was stooping them. With all brain and with all the koiches, the Mitzrayim was stooping them. And the Mitzrayim drove them out, and all of a sudden they get into these kanfei nesharim, these wings of the eagles that the Abish gave them, and the whole thing just flew with a tremendous Lefi Shah. What Lefi Shah is, it doesn't necessarily mean an hour, but it means like a short while, and the next thing they're over there in Sukkot. So I saw the Shaila, Gival, what happened with this Batseik? What happened with this? That they taken out with them because they picked it up before it became comets. And why did it not become comets? Because Mitzvah was stopping them and driving them. It didn't have a chance to become comets. Much more, maybe it could have become comets, but it didn't. And the Mitzvah are stopping them. Also, they get into this tremendous nest that they fly over the eagle's wings, over into Sukkot. And they say, well, here we are over here in Sukkot. What do we do now? So it's written that they baked the Batseik, or that Batseik, where they took out of Mitzrayim with them. They now decided that they would bake it. And all of a sudden they saw that it was what? They saw that it was matzot. And they made it into ugais. So Rashi says, what are these ugais? Ugais matzot. So Rashi says, charora shel matzor. A charara. Now a charora, in the Lashon of the Gemara, means a sort of thin, like piece of dough with water, like a thing, like a, how do you call it, a very thin baked form of a
Cracker.
bread or crust, type of thing. But it used to be made on a very hot sort of little circles in the ground. They used to light fire or coals inside the ground and stuck the dough on top of that, and then when it was baked, quickly remove it before it burnt. And that's called a charora.
Kind of like nowadays they put the dough on that round thing.
Yeah, it's like what they call pita now. The Iraqim never could Rahmanis even to mention the name of the Iraqim nowadays. The whole Balkan with the whole this. Oh, anyway, the Iraqim and other Sfaradim, they make what's called pitas. It's similar to that idea. So it's called a charora. So then Rashi adds, and he says the most amazing thing. He says, Batseik shaloi hichmitz karui matzah. Rashi says a Batseik which didn't yet become chometz, but that's called matzah, karui matzah. We'll admit that, Rashi. So for that it comes out that Rashi's telling me that the real name matzah is for flour, which hasn't yet become, not flour, dough, I'm sorry. Dough, which hasn't actually become leavened, it hasn't turned into leaven, into chometz. Well, that's what the name matzah really applies to. And which is the outcome of putting it in fire, that's called a uga. And what is a uga? A uga is a charora in this particular case. The word matzah is really referring to the dough. Therefore he says, Batseik sheloi hichmitz karui, it is called matzah. So maybe Rashi is not making an absolutely general statement, because if so, Rashi could have just said Batseik sheloi hichmitz hu matzah, or shmoi matzah. But he doesn't say that. He says Batseik sheloi hichmitz karui, it is called matzah, karui. We call it that. So maybe what Rashi is trying to do is refer to our situation here. Because the whole judgment here in the situation is the Batseik. We see they lifted up the Batseik, they lifted that up, and they took it with them, and the Mitzrayim drove them a tremendous speed. They couldn't do anything with it. And then they got in these conflict, the Shorim with the Abish, with the wings, next thing that, also they dropped down on Sukkot, and they say, what are we going to do now? Oh, now we've got a minute, we can bake it. Yeah, so they see that still has not become common. It's still not leaven. And therefore the Torah says, what did they do? They made out of it not matzahs, but they made ugais matzah. So I said, what should do it? Just say they made matzahs. Well, it was ugais matzahs. So from that, Rashi takes out that, well, at least in this situation, since we're placing our attention here, and the Ikka thing which should have gone into chometz and didn't was the Batseik, Kamura. I mean, that's the case every time. But here we've got a special attention on the batzeik. And therefore, as you said, the word matzah doesn't really apply to the final baked content, but it refers to the batzeik. In other words, how do we know what's not matzah, what's sheer matzah from the dough? That's how we know. In other words, that ordinary bread is dough that blew up and then it was baked. Matzah is dough that didn't turn into leaven, it didn't have to go sour, it didn't turn chomit, and then it's baked. So it comes to this, that the real name matzah or chomit really deal with the batzeik more than they do with the finished product. So therefore, as he says, that our ikka attention here is on the batzeik. And when they bake, also they wake up, well, here we are now in Sukkot. What are you going to do with our goat? So he said they baked it, and when they actually went to bake it, they saw it was still much hot. So how was it? So he said they saw that it was batzeik shlo hichmit. So I thought to Shiloh, what should we do? What's this whole story here? I mean, they've already finished with matzahs. They've already been kind of mitzvah for matzahs. And telling the stink. So you might say, well, no, they haven't. They've got to eat matzahs 7 days, haven't they? That's the mitzvah. They say you've got to eat matzahs 7 days. Oh, my son. If you look carefully, all the dinim of the Pesach of Mitzrayim, and particularly if you see it in the Mishnayos and the Gemara and the Masechta Pesachim, what's called Pesach Mitzrayim, the actual Pesach, how it was there, it was only 1 day, according to most opinions. There is an opinion that it was also 7 days, but the way we paskin, the way it's mashma, in the Mishnah and in Barov HaMekoros, the Pesach Mitzrayim was only 1 day. And therefore, the mitzvah of matzah on Pesach Mitzrayim was only on the night of Pesach. And I say this, even when we have 7 days of Pesach, the ikka mitzvah to eat matzah, also mitzvah aseh, is only by the Leil HaSeder. Of the eating of matzah in the other remaining days is not a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. In other words, if you want to eat bread, you have to eat matzah. Or if you don't want to eat bread, you don't have to eat matzah. I remember, Nimtza Lefiseh, that on the first, according to what happened with these peoples, the Yidden, how they are, on this first, and they've already been Mekayim all the mitzvah to Rashi, they got the leftover from the mitzvah. They've already been Mekayim the Ika mitzvah. But what are they doing with the sportsik business? What does it bother them, the whole thing? They don't have to eat matzahs anymore. They don't have to have, there's no mitzvah to eat matzahs anymore. Maybe there's a mitzvah to not have any chometz around, at least for 1 day. Yeah, we call Balia Yamatzeh. That maybe that not finding and not seeing any chometz in their hands or with them, in their reshus, that they call it, in their ownership. Maybe that went on for 1 day by day as well. They'd have to be careful not to have any chometz hanging around them. And therefore, they took out partake, and they had to be very, very careful that it not become a chometz. But they didn't have any control over that. They lost all control of the situation because the Mitzrayim drove them, and they lifted them up and took them out all the way over to Sukkot and the split moment or whatever it is, Lefi Shah. And then the next thing was, here they are in Sukkot. So Ramsey, I'm sorry, here they are in Ramses, the Sukkot. Well, what are we doing? Let's get baking this matzah. And they look at the batzeik, and they see that the batzeik is still matzah. It'll never happen to an amazing thing. So I said to Shiloh, on what basis here did this whole thing happen? I mean, if Pesach Mitzrayim is only Noyeg Yom Echad, and the mitzvah to eat matzahs is only B'layla B'lavah, before Chatzos Layla also. What's going on here? This whole matzah here with the matzahs, and it didn't become comments, and it did, and it didn't. It didn't, Cholila, and then they all of a sudden wake up to the hadn't yet, and they bake it immediately, and they just, what is it doing? So come along a certain great Mephoshim, the Ramban and the Ibn Ezra, they come along. And they want to say, and I say, stay talking the Saporno. The Saporno, he says, is a bit more sort of with a tooth tongue. And they say that the Yidden were concerned here to see that they shouldn't have any comments with them on the day of the first day, basically, on Yom Chamishah, Yom the 15th, which is the day we're talking about. That's when they're being after Chatzei Shla, and it took them into the day, or it didn't take them into the day, they got out to Sukkot very quick, but that's already considered, the Gabi all the mitzvahs of Pesach, that's already considered like the rest of the day, because it's already after Chatzei Shla. Why were they concerned here about whether it was chometz or whether it wasn't? Because they learned that the mitzvah of not to see or to find, or there shouldn't be in your whole domain any chometz, that year went on the first Pesach Mitzrayim, when Pesach I wasn't there, for a whole day, not just by night, but it went until the end of the first day. But after that, it didn't. So therefore, they were worried that they shouldn't be carrying with them any chometz. Forget about the whole business. Just get running. What are you worried about for cloud, the batzeik? So we should say that they had a bit of batzeik left over from before, or they had flour and water left over from before, and that was something to take with them, how do you call it? We need something immediately, to feed our families, our slaves and all that. Just the immediate necessity. So you might say, maybe they were doing it or take with them into the midbar. And that the Pasuk immediately says, oh no, they weren't. Because they didn't take any tzeidah with them at all into the midbar. They just went out without anything in the form of, how do you call it, supplies. What's the word? Provisions. Without any provisions of anything. They went out into the midbar. And Rashi brings on that an amazing Pasuk. Yeah, Rashi quotes a pasuk from Yeshaya Novi, where it's written, "Zochati lo chesed niurayich." The Dave said, I always remember for the Yidden, the love that they had for me, chesed, they call it in their youthful days. Yeah, lechtech acharai b'midbar, that you followed me out into the midbar, where it's lo yizarua, in a place that there's nothing to be sown and there is nothing sown, and you went out and you followed me out into the desert, into the midbar. So they should always remember that. In other words, that's a tremendous remembering excuse for the Jewish peoples that they didn't take with them anything when they went out. So what they do with this batzeh? Ma'aratuim said. We have to say that was an immediate necessity just to be able to give something to their families for the immediate necessity of the way. Or, they had this flour with water. They didn't want to have it in their reshus or leave it in their reshus. And therefore they tried to bake it. So it says the Ramban and the Ibn Ezra, and I say Kutos in the Saporno, that they say that they were worried about the union of loy yeroah v'loy yemotzei chometz. There shouldn't be bal yeroah bal yemotzei. There shouldn't be any chometz found by you or in your reshus. And therefore they tried to bake it as they were running, because they didn't want to have any haricot. But they were just starting this, and all of a sudden the Mitzrayim went so, panicky. The Mitzrayim started to drive them, and they had to carry this before they had a chance to do anything with it. So comes along, if you look carefully in the Ramban, so Ramban says that's what they were worried about. They were worried about the Pesach Mitzrayim was noiheg, the inif, and lo yeroah, v'lo yemotzei, bal yeroah, bal yemotzei. That was, noiheg, b'yoyim rishon, shel Pesach. And therefore they were concerned about that. They didn't, when they get to Achila, they'd already finished with the matzahs. They'd already eaten matzahs before. It's not a din in Achila, no, it's a din in bal yeroah, bal yemotzei. They didn't want it, and therefore they tried to bake it. They didn't have a chance, and then do it. So they wait all the time at this batzeh that they got, and they get out and they get all the way over the suitcase, and they take a look at the batzeh and keep out. They see that it hasn't yet become chometz. Lo niyah chomet. They said, oh, what a matzia. It didn't become chomet. Here we go. They baked it. Vayefu asabot. Asher hoitziu. They took out with them. Yeah, maybe trying ugeis matay. Because the actual flour itself, the actual dough itself never. That's called matzah. The dough itself is called matzah. Adamant, Kumtes, Lefizer, says the Hadikonims, the Saporno, and he said that what happened here was an amazing situation that it could have become chometz. They mixed water with the dough, and the Matthias was that it could have become chometz without the actual mixture and the actual dough. It could have become chometz, but the nes, or the Indian, as you might say, Nisi, the divine miraculous factor, which prevented it from becoming chometz, was the swiftness of what happened. And that in itself two factors. The Mitzrayim, pushing them and stooping them with unbelievable force. It was the speed that everything happened. In other words, David took him, Miram says, and he brings down, he quotes the Medrash and the Mechilta, it's a very famous Medrash on Shmois. What they say that it all happened in split minutes, that they went all the way from Ramses left the Sukkot, and so much happened. Now, it's not, I don't see any reason why we can find in Rashi that Rashi says a great deal different. Maybe there are other dikdukim in Rashi, but it seems that Rashi follows the same basic inyan, because Rashi says that the Mitzrayim stooped them so much that it couldn't become chometz. In other words, it's not something that, some nest that happened in the actual dough. Because the Mitzvahs of the world, the dough could have turned chometz, but things were happening that didn't allow it to become chometz. Whether it's the Mitzrayim, or whether it was the tremendous nest that they flew from Ramses to Sukkot, or whatever. But a combination of these different factors, which were albeit divine influences in the world, but they weren't mamish divine influence, which were meshaneh ad kedei kach, the whole Metzius of the world, something which was dough couldn't become chometz. Or yes, it could have, but it just couldn't. It just didn't get a chance. Everything just happened so fast. It didn't get a chance. So the Fizeh Kumtais, that they were really trying to save themselves from the Lois Haseh of Balira, Balimate, and they aims to help them in a most amazing way, that everything just flew and everything had just tremendous. Fetching away over there, something hurting you.
There.
Aye. Here,
The Egyptians also
got
moved
fox
back.
sitting on you, and you got problems at your back. What are you going to look like when you're... Now they say when you buy it.
Rabbi, you're such a young guy, you know. You're.
So anyway,
What about the?
what comes out is... what comes out is that the world changed, but it didn't change. The world changed in the sense that things happened with unbelievable swiftness. But the fact that a thing which has been mixed with flour has been mixed with water could have become chometz, that didn't change. It could have technically become chometz, but they used to made and saved and did and do it with amazing speed. It didn't. But there was a certain vested interest in all that to save the Yidden from the Yisur of Balira Balia, for them to save themselves, as it were, from the Yisur of Balira Balia Motzei. Although if he said, it must have been a very swift move from Ramses to I mean, you're talking about, maybe, I don't know, must have been close to 1 million people or something, a lot of people. Because 600,000 men, they all had wives and they had children, so I mean, you're getting into a very large number of people, and they got donkeys and flocks and all sorts of, and then you got this aid of Rav, you got all these guys that wanted to hop along, So, yeah, we want to join up with these people, etc. And then later on there was difficulties with them. There was going on that the air of life caused a lot of difficulty. The Wach HaPonim is it's a heck of a lot of people. Huge amount of people. But according to that Cheshbon, the Ramban and the Seforno, now we move a little bit further. We take a step a little bit further. I find that the Maharal MiPrague comes along, and he says the most amazing thing, the Maharal MiPrague. And he says that according to his calculation, and this is a calculation of certain other great authorities, but many people differ with this quite sharply when you get to the halacha. He says that the whole mitzvahs, those rabbin, of Pesach, which applied in Pesach Mitzrayim, only applied on the 14th in the afternoon, because you weren't allowed to have chametz around already, as is well known at that time, and the 15th by the night you had to eat Pesach, and you had to eat it with matzahs and with moredim, and you weren't allowed to have any chametz around, but that was only until the end of that night, and maybe even until Chatzos Leila. After that, in Pesach Mitzrayim, everything was mutar. You could have chametz, and you could have eaten chametz if you wanted the next day. Noihagim shum mitzvahs from mitzvahs HaPesach. He holds that this whole thing from Pesach Mitzrayim was only from the moment they slaughtered the Korban Pesach on Yud Daled until either Chatzos Leila or Sof HaLaila of Tesvav. That's a chiddush. But there are certain great other authorities that they seem to hold it that way. The Maharal MiPrague describes it. So he said, therefore, what was the whole problem if this Batzek would have become common? This Batzek that they're taking now with them, sorry, after Chatzos Leila, all the mitzvahs of Pesach have been finished, and there's nothing really to believe anymore. Ain't mal avoyer yoter. And I mean, what's the big problem that this would have turned into chametz? And the father says to Maharal MiPrague, Chiddush Dover. And he says that the whole purpose that the Eibishter made that this particular Batzek, this after Chassidistic of Batzek, that they're already taking with them, that it didn't turn into chametz, and the nisim that the Eibishter made prevented it from turning into chametz. Well, that was purely to show the godless of the Eibishter. And that was to show and to indicate the dearness of the neshamas of the Yidden to the Eibishter, that everything happened with tremendous swiftness, that it went so swift that even something which normally would become chametz didn't. Not because it bothered anybody, halakhaically to use the expression. Al-Pi-Halacha, it didn't bother anybody, how did it become chametz? It bothered everybody to show just how much in a hurry the Eibishter was to get the Yidden out of to get him out of Mitzrayim, that he blew all the klolim, haragilim, that even something which had already been mixed with dough with water, and normally it would become chametz, it didn't. That's a tremendous gilui of chavivas and of hurrying everything for the sake of the Yidden on the part of the Eibishter. It's a gewaldic idea. The Maharal MiPrague. Billy Ploy. It's like as if all this whole story that they picked up the Batzek, Terem, and then they're moving. They all of a sudden they fly over the Ramsey, over the Sukkot, and then all of a sudden they see that it's still that the Batzek is matzah. Rashi said this is the Batzek and give it matzah. Wow, that's unbelievable. So they said, well, let's bake it. We'll make it into matzah. So what's the point? So they baked it, made it into matzah, but not because they had to have the matzah. Nish mitzad bal yiroeh, and nish mitzad mitzvahs achilas matzah. You didn't need the from the matzah. It all was a sign of the unbelievable chavivus, how do you call it, love and affection of the Eibishter for the Jewish people, that all of a sudden went psh, kacha. למה אתה יושב ככה?
No question.
No, forget your question. Why don't you say, well, if you did it then, Abishter, why don't you do it now?
Amen.
What's the question?
That's a question. In other words, what could be more urgent now? I mean, at least the way we simple created beings understand it. What could be more urgent?
Second.
And unfortunately, the Yidden themselves intend giving everything away to these unbelievable murderers and Rothschild and gangsters. They intend letting these unbelievable tyrants like Iran take over the world. What's going on? It's unbelievable. It's unfathomable. Yeah. So, Eberstein, Ad Mosai. And so we different. The Maharal Mipar comes out with tremendous limud, unbelievable, what you might call understanding or teaching, that when the Eberstein saw that it was no longer proper to leave the Yidden in Golish, with unbelievable speed, he did it for no particular reason, only to show just how dear the Jewish people were. And the Maharal he's got a sefer on the Haggadah Shel Pesach called Gvureis Hashem, as he calls it. Over there, he's marich in that whole inyan, which I just said, even more. He writes about it at more length, even though he does say it also in his Pirush HaTorah, which is called the Gur Aryeh. That's a whole new idea. Aina Gila Alakus for the sake of the urgency of looking up the Jewish people. Now we move a little bit further, and we get close to a new idea, which is similar to that brought up by the Maharal. And that is, if you look in the Targum Yenis and Ben Uziel, which I don't have in this Chumash, I don't know if you got it in your Chumashim, but if you look in the Targum Yenis and Ben Uziel, he says, well, he was a Tana, he was a Talmud of Rabbi Yamin Zakkai. Rabbi Yenis and Ben Uziel, he brings down, he writes that when the Yidden saw this Batzeik, after Chatzei Slayla, they got this Batzeik with them. So what they did is that they started moving, also at tremendous speed, out of Mitzrayim, but he said they lifted it up and put it on their heads. At least they did. They took the Batzeik, which they had left over from what they'd used, before, like we said. And they mixed it with water and they put it on their heads. He said, all the peoples who could possibly do so, put it on their heads, and they started moving. And he said, since it was already Nisan, and Nisan is already can be a hot month, so the Eibishter brought out a very hot sun, and as they moved and as they ran, the sun baked it and turned it into matzahs. So by the time they got to Sukkot, they said, give a cook. It's already matzah. So that's what I had to fit in with the simple language of the Pasuk, that the Pasuk, Vayoifu es ha-batzeik. I said, it's much more they baked it. So the Mephorim and the Targum said what he means is that they put it on their heads. I mean, when you bake something, you don't bake it, you just put it where it's going to be exposed to the fire, and then it bakes on its own. So he said, what do you mean? They baked it, they put it on their head. And their heads were the oven. Big cabbage, there was a special gilui of the sun, and the sun baked it. So by the time they got out to Sukkot, they pulled down, and they said, here. And so by Yefa, it wasn't after they already got to Sukkot, it was on the way to Sukkot. It got back. So it comes on the tremendous Shaila and the intelligent reader, and the intelligent reader, I'm really stirred with the Shtur of the Kikashi, that it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch, and the Alter Rebbe brings it in Shulchan Aruch, that you cannot make matzah by putting it in the sun. But you can't be eaten with the sun matzah. Even if it looks baked, then we don't rely on the sun to bake something that way. And even if we're sure that it is baked through and through, he said we still can't be yaitze with it, because what is called afiyah, baking, means when you put something in a fire, oven, something that's got fire in the oven, or the heat of fire. He said if the sun is not considered fire in a form of an oven, well, Hashem, fortunately. He said it just could happen, and you might just get the sun at the right moment of the day. You might catch the right angle. There's a very, very powerful throwback or whatever from the sun, that you might just get something to be baked, but it's not considered really baked. And if ever say, ask yourself the Gewaldige Kashiya on the Targum Yenis, what does he say? Such a thing that they put it on their heads, and the sun turned it into matzah. He was a ton, and he was makabel everything that he had from Ish Mi Pi Ish Mi Moshe Rabbeinu. What do you want with that? The Targum Yenis and Ben Uziel. So I have to say, and it's put down in a Maimah. I saw it in a Maimah, the Rebbe Hashem, but I try to look up in the haste and in the being shook to come down to the shir, and I just couldn't find it in that particular Maimah that I looked, but it is written in a Maimah, and probably from the earlier Rebbeim in certain places. It's not a common thing. So and they want to say, what does it mean the sun? What does he mean the sun? And the Shemesh Kiru. What he means is that the whole Indian for Nisan is what we call the Isarusa Deli Eilo. Everything comes from all. They took out, even though we're not working. In other words, everything goes Milmailala. It's famous, it's well known that that's the big, great, wondrous thing about Pesach, and the month of Nisan in general, that it's all in Milmailala, Lamat. And so therefore, what he wants with the idea that the sun baked it, means that it all came Milmaila. It was all an Indian of Gila Alakus Milmailala, Milmaila Lamata, meaning that Enoch Hanami, not the actual Shemesh, burnt the matzah and made it into that's not kosher, it's not kosher matzah. But maybe you could question and say, well, maybe they didn't really need kosher matzahs at this point. Yeah? At least it wasn't chometz. But even that's a little bit hard to question, but to cover also. And therefore we can say that what he means is, if I'm not mistaken, it's brought in this Maimah, that the Shemesh is indicatory of the Shem Havaya. The Shemesh indicates the union of the Shema Havaya, like it's written in Pasuk, Ki Shemesh U'mogein Havaya Elokim. The Shem Havaya is the Shem how it's Lamailami Teva, or Lamailami limitation, Lamailami Medidavad, Vahagabola, and particularly the Shem Havaya indicates everything else comes from Milmaila Lamata. And what he means is that the Shemesh, meaning the Shem Havaya, how it is in Chodesh Nisan, where it's an inim from the Shem Havaya Kisidra, it's well known. Each of the 12 months has got a combination of the Shem Havaya, which is shite to that month. And the Shem Havaya, which is shite to Nisan, is the Shem Havaya Kisidroi. In other words, Yud Kei Vav Kei straight. But that indicates a tremendous toikev in the Gilui of L'mayla Me'ah, Teva, and in the Inifan, the Shem Havaya Mamish B'pashtas. Not else it turns itself around with that combination. And that indicates that the whole Inifan Nisan was Milmaila Lamata, etc., etc. And that's what we suggest, that the Targum Yenis, he's Megala, a new, what you might call, vista in this whole thing, that there was a tremendous Gila Kus for even Gozer, that nature and things started functioning differently. Not that everything remained the same, but just there was one detail that was different. They flew across to Ramses, to Sukkot rather, from Ramses, but everything was what you might call, the sun was different, everything was different. Everything was like a Gilui Eloki. The sun was no longer just the sun, it was Begilui the Shem Havaya. Even though Bapoyo is what baked the matzah. So with that, we now move to a whole new understanding of this Indian, which we're going to go over very bekitzer, because we see that everybody's already saying, we want sleep now, etc., etc. And their minds are already in the buses tomorrow morning, etc., etc. So we're going to go over this Indian somewhat briefly. We're going to see a whole new view of the situation. And that is, in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, everybody will turn to the Haggadah Shel Pesach. So right towards the end of the Haggadah, just the actual telling of the Haggadah, before we drink the second kos, before kos sheni, it comes along Rabban Gamliel. Have you got it over there? After Alachas Kama V'Kama, after the Dayenus, you got the Dayenus, and you got Alachas Kama V'Kama. Then you got Rabban Gamliel Hoyo Oima.
393.
Everybody got it? Now this is a quotation from the Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Masechta Brachos, in Masechta Pesachim, in Perek Assyria, in the 10th Perek. Rabban Gamliel Hoyo Oima. He used to say, Rabban Gamliel, Kol Shaloi Oima, or Omar, Shloisha Dvarim Eilu b'Pesach lo yotzi yedei choivosei. Somebody didn't say these three things in Pesach, that he wasn't yotze his choivi. He didn't know he could keep his obligation. Ve'elu hein, and this is what they are: Pesach, Matzah, Umorah. Right? You gotta say them. You've got to say out B'dibur before you actually come to these mitzvahs. You've got to talk of B'dibur. You can say Pesach, Matzah, Umar. If you didn't, then you weren't Yotze L'dei Choiv. So comes along the Bel Haggadah, and he teaches like a sort of an understanding in Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel won't that. I'm going to say Pesach, Matzah, Umar. What have I achieved? So he teaches what Rabban Gamliel wants is that you must say, you must say Pesach, and then you must say Matzah, and you must say Morah, and you must give a sort of a beer and a reason why you're doing this. You must sort of bring the reason in the Torah why you're saying this, and you must, as it were, talk about the, almost you might say, the time why we're doing it. Now why would that be? Why would the Baal Haggadah, why would he think that that's so important in understanding what Rabban Gamliel meant? That's a big long riches, but because we're short of time we can't go into it. But one of the Ike Inyanim of the whole Seder HaPesach, the Leil HaSeder, is the Inyan of question and answer. It's the Inyan of asking questions and answering. There's a whole pnimis in that, why we do it that way. Therefore we stir the children that they should ask. And then we answer, and we ask things ourselves, why this, why that, and then we answer. It's a whole Indian that there should be question and answer, and that the answer should open something with the question only, as it were, touches that, but doesn't open it. It's like the lead into the opening, but the answer opens up. That's what the question implies. So therefore, why do you have to say Pesach, Matzah, Umar? In order to lead in that we should say something. What are these things about? Why do we do it? And almost as it were, give a time, v'do. So therefore, that's what Rabbi Gamliel meant when he said, if you don't say these three things, you won't really eat your day. You're choiva, because there's a very special union on the Leil Pesach to talk about it. And that's what we see, that the whole of God is called Haggadah. What the word Haggadah is based on the word Lahagid. What Lahagid means to say and to tell. And particularly, there's a union, Lahagid v'higad to Levin Cho. You should tell your son. Yeah, a union telling Dafke to the small children and so on and so on. So therefore, first he says Pesach, and then he gives a whole beer in the called Pesach. Then he says matzah. Yeah, matzah. What are we supposed to say about matzah in order to be Eichel Day? He said, we say matzah Zushan or Ikli Mal Shumma. Yeah. For what reason? Literally, Shumma means why, and what, in the name of what? Literally, why are we doing this? So there's a whole view of the Pnimi Santuarim why we say that Lashon Shumma. We can't go into that right now. Shum Shaloi Hispik Batecha Shalav Seinu Lahachmit Ad Sheniglo Aleim Melo Malchem Rav HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ugiolo. Why are we eating matzahs? Yeah, because the batik, that dough of our forefathers, didn't make it. It didn't reach becoming chomet. Well, his peak, it didn't get there. It didn't become chomet. And shenigla aleim malo b'achem lo mekayim until the Eibishter appeared, revealed himself, nigla aleim ugiolo, and he redeemed them. He took them out. Shenema vayoifu es habotzeik asher hoitziu mimitzrayim ugeis matzeis ki loy chomeis. It just automatically wasn't chomeis. Ki gershu mimitzrayim v'lo yochel izmameya v'gam tzedel. So I asked the question, where's it written in this posse that the Eibishter built a gun to do it? Where's that written? Elamai, we have to say that the ik is this, that they baked the botzeik as hoitziu mimitzrayim, yeah, ugeis chameit, ugeis matzeis, they made it matzah, yeah. Why? Kiloi chameit. It just automatically wasn't chameit. Kiloi chameit. Automatically wasn't chameit. Why automatically wasn't chameit? Because nigla aleim melech malchei malach HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ugiolo. So, what sort of nigla aleim malach HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ugiolo? So comes along and says that from that moment of Chatzos Laila, the Eibishter came out into the world b'galui. And this whole Indian of Machas B'choirois, and Ein Dochanami, there was also a jumping of the Yidden from Sukkot L'Ramzit, it doesn't deal with that. And the Mitzrayim drove them out as well. Nobody did. These are things which are written. But why did all this happen? Because there was a Gilui Elakus. There was a Gilui of Elakus in the world, Mamish Kipshut. And Pari went crazy, everybody went crazy, the whole world, yeah, got up and people could see the aims, they could see Gilui. So therefore, comes along Alter Rebbe here in the Siddur, and later on all the Rebbeim and the Alter Rebbe in the Likutei Torah, and everywhere, the two Mamar at least in the Likutei Torah, the Alter Rebbe talks about it, and all the Rebbeim, in the middle of the Rebbeim, Ruby McKay, all the Rebbeim, all of them talk about this, because they say, wait a minute now, what is really happening here? You're asking, matzah that we're eating, why are we eating it? The Alter Rebbe makes the point here, in the Maimah here, that we're eating matzahs before chatzos. We're eating matzahs with what was supposed to be the Korban Pesach. We don't have the Korban Pesach, we eat the African instead. But we're eating matzahs before chatzos. All of a sudden they come along and say, no, why are we eating our matzah? Because of this whole thing that happened after Chatzos Laila. Do it. What's it got to do? I mean, what we eat before Chatzos is a mitzvah. You got to eat the matzah. You got to make them. And you got to guard them. Ushmat them as a matzah. Plus, you can, in one of the psukim prior, that you got to guard the matzahs and tremble and watch it. They shouldn't turn into chomet. This is what happened here. This is after Chatzos Laila. We just pointed that out at the beginning of the class. You have to remember one thing from the Adya. In other words, it all happened after Chatzos Laila, and it all came to happen almost for no reason. The Maral person didn't have for any particular reason. All of a sudden I'm saying, no, the matzah zushanu oiglem, matzah shchonu oiglem, because of that. You should just say, matzah zushanu oiglem. Shenama, be'erev teichlu matzahs, ve'teichlu im korban pesach, al matzah zumorem, yoflu. Peli dikazah. Peli flood. Kashi. So the supporter, the emphasis, the supporter mentions that, and he says that it's like until that happened to me is a later thing. That once they got to Sukkot, then the Eibush revealed himself in the Amud age, well, they already began. So it's like saying all these happened until the Eibush took them away into the desert. The Eibush, he carried them out into the desert with his divine guidance. Of the Nigla Alev Malach up until that happened. That's a later thing. Comes along, because that happened after they already started moving out of Sukkot. Until then, there was this tremendous mess, which happened with the Mahir. Comes along the Alter Rebbe, and he teaches to, and he says that Anshe Nigla Alev Malach Malach HaKadosh Baruch Hu U'Giyona means that this could have started becoming chometz. They mixed the water together with the dough, but boom, there was immediately this ad meaning like an immediate statement, not like waiting to some later point, which is not really nogeya, but saying immediately in the situation that the water together with the flour ran into this whole thing that there's a gilui of Melech Malchei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When there's a Gilui Alakus like there was here, that Pari and everybody just going out of their minds because they can see that the whole world is begolui. So then says the Rebbe, the whole world changed, the ganze world, not just part of it, but the whole world holds. The Alakus is begolui, and the whole world holds. And what is one of the inyonim of Alakus is begolui? Then everything has to be batel. Ein oid. There can't be any Matthias. If the Eibush is there, then there can't be any Matthias. And therefore Pari went haywire because he was a Matthias. He just, as they say, he freaked out completely. And so did Dimitri. They just went mad. Take away the skill out of course, because if so, we don't exist. We don't have any place. Our whole clip, everything's just falling apart. And out of here, you guys should take your Gilui Alakus with you. We can't have it here. And Ella said to her, that what happens is that even something in the physical world, which is a Matthias, has to become always Matthias. And therefore, even this dough, which had water and flour in it, so says the Alter Rebbe, an amazing thing. He said, you think it went so quick? He said, even if you'll tell me that they had Al Kanfa in the Shari, and they had this Indian of, went over the Fee Shore, it took a very short time to go from Sukkot to Ramses to Sukkot. He said, you want to tell me that it didn't take more than 18 minutes? And they said, the Alter Rebbe don't mind. He said 600,000 miles with all the chapels, with all the donkeys, with all the. He said a fielder, it went boom, they flew over in the air. They just from one to the other. Till they get them all up in the air, till they get them all down, till they put them all down, till all the animals that they mentioned. It must have taken 18 minutes. I told him. He said it must have taken 80 minutes, even with all the Mahiras, with all the Meisers, with all the Sachen. But he said, "Hello, maniana fachat." The Alter doesn't interest me how long it took. Could be it took 19 minutes. Could be 20 minutes. According to the other opinion, 25. They all 24. They would have to be 25. Could be took 30 minutes, half an hour. Lo maniana fachat. Why? Because ki loy chomet. This can't be any chomet in the world. Ki chomet is matziyah. Chomet is something that blows itself up. Chomet rises up. And it becomes a puff. And I said, "Oh yes, you're a matzis, but I'm also a matzis." So anything which blows itself or forms a matzis couldn't possibly exist at that moment. And therefore, there just couldn't be any chometz. Ki loy chomet. The person loy chomet otava. Ki loy chomet. Then it just couldn't be, because the aim was begotten, ois chomet, ois matthias, ois yeshes. Everything is bottled and over an oi. It have a power in the whole thing, they just go haywire completely. They can't exist anymore. They're grasping for breath. And all the bechoides, but that's the real yeshes, they just blew it all together. They just had no place anymore. And the whole thing just absolute, the whole Olam Hazeh, which still wanted to feel them, just went haywire completely. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Oh, this is the moment, this is Gilui Elokus, this is the Eibishter B'Golu Imami." He said, "Come on, Yidden was just out of here, You got a bit of botchik there. Let fly. Don't worry." So even if we say that there was a Yisuf in Bali Motzei, there's nothing to worry about, because since the Elokus, it's not going to turn into Chomet. Ki loy Chomet. This can't happen. He said that there's a whole big amazing Chiddush, a whole different way of looking at it here in the light of Chassidus. A whole different way of looking at it, because the way the Saporno and the Ramban and all those, and maybe even Rashi, they learned that it could have become Chomet, but there was just one divine influence, the kind of speed. And that speed was saving things, because Chomet needs speed, otherwise it becomes Chomet. Things have to happen quickly, otherwise the thing becomes Chomet. It was their whole Inyan. Well, not the whole world changed, not that it couldn't have become Chomet, it could have become Chomet. But it just didn't because of that, at a speed. And him said, listen, I saw it was written in a Mafeiros from the Saporna, and he said, very good, he said, he said, it wasn't a din, according to the Saporna, it wasn't a din in the Batzeik, it was a din in the, what they call a din in the Mehiras of the way it happened. It wasn't actually, the Batzeik was like a victim of the situation. There was a big speed, it didn't become Chomet. If it wouldn't have been speed, it would have become Chomet. So it's not a din in the Batzei. It's a din in the Mehiras of the Shefa.
What's the Mehiros?
Maybe?
What does Mehiros mean?
Mehiros?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Mehiro, speed.
Speed. Mehiro. Speed.
Mehiros.
No, it's the word, not the word.
Yeah. But the way the Alter Rebbe learns, it's not like that. The Alter Rebbe learns that the din is a din in the Batzei. It is actually in the Etzem Batzei this didn't become Chomet. Ki loy Chomet. It just couldn't become Chomet without the Gilui Elokus. It's got nothing to do with the Mehiras at Kerikah. The Mehiras was just another factor in the Gilui Elokus. But the Etzem meaning was that the Zachar Lane itself could not be Chomet. Ki loy Chomet. Loy Chomet. Everything is bottled without the Gilui Elokus. Oi. You remember, ain't po Yechuilas for Matthias or Chomet. It's a whole different world. It's a world where everything is made as absolute bittul to the Eibishter. Bittul by Matthias man. Prepare man. But take Adora. If you'd have been there at that moment, you would have just said, what am I doing here? How can I exist? You would have had a cash on yourself. What are you doing here? And therefore, Pari went haywire and did the whole thing. It's a new din altogether, a new material. That's a very good kasha. Do we ask in Keen, how do I say on the matzahs before Chatzos? Why I'm eating the matzah? Because that which happened after Chatzos. That what happened after Chatzos was another in altogether. It just couldn't automatically become common. So you know it milk. But the matzah we eat before Chatzos is still sharp to the world the way it is. We're going to be very careful with that matzah. We have to watch it. So how we say about our matzah that they do it, and particularly that was something that happened in Mitzrayim. Where is it every year? You want to know that happens every year, does? After Chatzos Laila. Good question. There comes along certain Maimorim and Siddur, and the Rebbe Melech Mashiach, in Kama Maimorim Shaloya and Tziches, they say yes, Dad. It all depends a bit on you. Of course, it depends on the Eivishter, but it depends how you shape yourself to live the Inyan. And why do we say on our matzah that we eat Koydem Chatzos? A time for something that's going to happen later. It's not happening right at this moment. Being Kametz, after Matan Torah, when the Eivishter gave us mitzvahs, mitzad Gilur Ha'atzmas, that every mitzvah has in itself a certain inyan for Gilur Ha'atzmas. So that when you do a mitzvah and you do it with the right attitude and the right bittul, you anyway get into that situation of ki loy chom. At that moment you couldn't have any chometz by yourself. If you're really doing the mitzvah right, you couldn't be shy to the chom. And since we're doing a mitzvah after Matan Torah now, when they were in Mitzrayim, it was like two separate inyanim. They were before Chatzos, they were one way, after Chatzos, they were another way, because they hadn't got the Torah yet. Oh, but we got the Torah. Whenever we do a matzah, it's picked. In Mamir, to a certain extent, when we eat before Chatzos, we also have what it's going to be like after Chatzos. What it's going to be like after Chatzos. That we got in the matzahs that we eat a certain trace of that in what's going to be like after Chatzos. After Chatzos, just take off. After Chatzos, Gilui, Atzmas Eitzeif Lamata. So it's mashma in certain drushim of the Rabbein that's the unbelievable greatness of Pesach. And that's why, it's mashma that Moshiach will come in Nisan, and that the whole inyan of Benisan, Nigalo Avisaino, or Benisan Asidin Lihigo, that they're going to be redeemed in Nisan, because Nisan is the time for that sort of thing, and particularly on the night of Pesach. That on the night of Pesach after Chatzos, that there's a miyain of that like it was. It's not like it was then, but there's a certain trace of it occurs. And here one, you're already tasting that in the matzah that you eat before Chatzos, even though in Mitzrayim was two separate matzahs or two separate inyanim. But now through Matan Torah we can reunite the two together and we bring them all together. And so we can say that in our matzah, in the batzek itself, in the matzah itself, kiloi chometz. And then there's a man from the Rebbe Rashab in Tov Reish Nun Aleph, but he said the most amazing thing to them. They said if a Yid really bakes matzah with the emes of Yerushalayim, with the emes of Kavanah, and with the emes of Bittul to the Eivishter, it can't become one. It's just not chai. Because nowadays, it's all kilo meya backwards and forward. The whole inyan of Achar Chatzos Laila is to a certain extent present in the before Chatzos, even when you're baking your matzahs already. It's already there because the mitzvah part of it links us all into Atzmas Eitzeif Palavach, which means that when you really do a mitzvah, you do it right, then you're not shy to any comments for it. Therefore there's an amazing Rashi. Take a look. It's written with Shmartem as a matzahs, right? You must look after the matzahs to prevent it become comments. Rashi brings a second shot. Dova Achas, Rashi, Al Tikro matzahs al mitzvahs. Yeah? Shmartem as a mitzvahs. Rashi said you must do a mitzvah. Immediately it comes your way. Don't make any comments out of the mitzvah. You don't do a mitzvah with happiness and with how do you call it, energetic and speedily, and you do it punctually on the time, then Rachmanin and Klana can become common. But I sign the Bismani, if you do it rightly, then it's not common. chomet. Shmatim is going to be the Rashi. Look it up. I just can't show you everything. I don't want to get you guys off to bed with the whole issue. If he's there, come to it's good. It's a din in the Batzeik, and that what happened after Chatzos Laila had to happen to bring back and to reveal into all time that when the Eibush is Begolo in the world is always Matzia. Every prat in the world is it. And therefore nothing can be Chomet. Therefore, a year is better than Mahus, a Heipach in a Chomet. And remember, that's there every Pesach, and to a certain extent, when you do a mitzvah, that's Meir there with you. Shmatim is a mitzvah. Why? Because Matan Torah brought that unbelievable Gili which occurred after Chatzos and mixed it all together with Koyre Matzah. What is our request to the Eibishter? Our request to the Eibishter is that we want Mashiach now, and we want these inyanim to be mamish b'pashta. They're there, and there's a ha'ora of them, and it's true, and there's a certain gili when we do a mitzvah, and there's no chometz or tel inyanim. There's just a little perfection that has to occur to mamish make it b'pashtas in the mitzias of the world, mamish b'pashtas, just like it was then. And remember, that's what we say, ki mei teish kom, it's Mitzrayim, like the days of our going out of Mitzrayim, our enemy floys show us wonders, like it was then. Now, Rabbi always stresses that then when the Eibush will show us now, it'll be incomparably higher even than what it was then. And that's what the Targum Yenis of Ben Uzilas Maramis, that the Shem Avaya cooked their matzahs for them. In other words, the L'mayla Me'ateva made them into matzah. Shem Avaya, Shemesh, made them into.
But that still goes against the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says it has to be mamash afiyah.
No. So therefore we say it doesn't mean that the actual Shemesh cooked it. Right? That's what I teach you. Catch it. It's not that the Shemesh, it's the Shem Avaya that did. It's the L'mayla Me'ateva that did, not just the Shemesh. He teaches even from Shemesh. He means the Shem Avaya.
Yeah.
We said that before.
Yeah, but still.
No,
it has
he
to
doesn't
be
mean that. The Targum Yenis talks in Eichel in Yonim. He doesn't necessarily teach it purely according to Pshat. He teaches it. The Shemesh is a written in a mind from the Rebbe Rashab that he means the union of the Ptimis of the Shemesh, which is Shem Avaya.
So how does that answer?
If this is the Shem Avaya, then it's not the Shemesh. The Shemesh is only like a symbol.
You need fire.
Huh?
You need actual fire, though.
I did the Shem Avaya is because we're saying that's what the Alter Rebbe said. If you're a crucis begola, you can't everything just automatically becomes matzah. You're missing the point. If you're a crucis begola, then everything just has to be matzah. It can't be chom. Anything which is matzah is against Einoid Mavada. So the Shem Avaya, he's the immediately saying Gilul down. In Melbourne, the Shem Avaya is begolui, just automatically there's no there's automatically no matzah. That's all.
I understand that.
That's the Gansurim.
God made them
automatically. There's no matzah. That's what the Alter Rebbe tells us. That's what happened. That's what he tells us. That happens now every time. Every time we do a mitzvah, that happens also. Remember, the whole matzah is a chometz just can't be.
But it still wasn't matzah, though.
Right?
It still wasn't matzah. It's only matzah once you bake it in fire.
Huh?
So it's only matzah once you bake it in fire.
Yeah,
According to Shulchan Aruch. So here it wasn't matzah.
No.
It's called the name matzah. I mean, it is matzah. It's called matzah.
So what we could say was that even according to the Targum Yenis of Benozio, when they got into Ramses, then they put it inside the The point being that if we learn according to the Maram, it didn't need to be. It doesn't have to be matzah anyway with a dinner matzah. It's the inner matzah. That's according to the Maram. Nobody needed it to be mamish matzah al pidin. We just needed it. It shouldn't be chometz.
Rashi touched it. It wasn't
To show,
it was called matzah.
regardless of the net, eh?
Actually, actually, that was it was called matzah before it was actual.
That's what he's
Matzah
saying. It's
cracker.
the name.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
his name matzah.
Yeah, yeah, you got a
It's
good
called
point. He
the
makes a good point. According to Rashi, it's called matzah even before it actually got baked. Yeah, that's also an interesting remnant in Rashi. You've got a very good point. Yeah. But anyway, what it comes down to is that where there's an embassy Gilead Kuz, that this can't be the Indian from when we bake matzahs, we take a bake them in the oven. What we're saying is that because that happened, then there's a certain hashpah into our matzah also, and into the whole world around us. Yeah, Balel Hafiz. Good. So what do we say? It just revealed that Indian Begolo Pashas B'Techo Elam B'Shimos, and there won't be there won't be any comments. That there'll only be the Indian from Emerson Matzah, and everybody will just stand up and say, yeah, Ein Oid Novadoi, and we want even more. We want even just Ein Oid Novadoi, but we want Ein Oid. It's one of the Rebbe said that's even higher than Ein Oid Novadoi, and Omein Keni Rotzen, and take it from me out.
Amen.
Yes.